Hello, today I'm going to talk to you about this STEM unit that I created, and the culminating task or activity is to create a solar oven. This is meant to be for 6th graders. There were some standards in math in which we are going to address during this unit. The first one being display numerical data in plots on a number line, including dot plots, histograms, and box plots. The second standard is going to be representing three-dimensional figures using nets made up of rectangles and triangles. The science standard that will be addressed is undertake a design project to construct, test, and modify a device that either releases or absorbs thermal energy. The engineering standard that's addressed is develop a model to generate data for iterative testing and modification of a proposed object, tool, or process such that an optimal design can be achieved. The scenario is, oh no, your oven is broken and you would like to make a s'more. Your goal is going to be to make your own oven based on what you know about thermal energy. Students will understand that certain materials do not conduct heat well. Students will understand that the sun's energy can be collected and stored for useful purposes. Some restrictions are that this unit will be 5 days for 45 minutes a day, and students will work in groups of 4. Here are a list of materials that will be needed for this unit. Some of them including aluminum foil, wood, scissors, plastic, white paper, black paper, a cup, water, a baking sheet, planning sheet, pencil, science journal, tape, and a box. Day 1 of this lesson is going to introduce students to basic heat transfer concepts by asking them about situations in which they experience heat transfer in their daily lives. So, what do you notice about when you step on the road that is black? Is it colder or warmer than when you step on a sidewalk that is not? So, to introduce solar ovens, we're going to look through this website that shows different types of solar cookers or solar ovens. Students can study these and look at the different characteristics of a solar oven. Next, students are going to explore different materials in which they saw in those solar ovens, and we will place them outside. Students will predict which materials will get warmest when they're out in the sun, and we'll do that by touch. Students are going to record what they find in their journal, and we're going to compare what each student found and which materials were the warmest. Day 2 of this unit will revisit the information that we concluded from yesterday's discussion. And this is where students are going to create a cup. So they'll get a cup and they're going to create something to go around it or in it that is going to heat up water that is in the cup the most when it's sitting out in the sun for an hour. So students are going to plan how they will create their cup based on the materials that we talked about yesterday, and they will put their cup out in the sun with water in it for an hour. We will take the temperature of each water cup, and students will have to graph the temperatures of each group to show which color, if they used paper or different materials, conducts heat the best. And students will make these conclusions and record them in their science journal. Day 3, students will create a plan that they will use to create their solar solar oven using the provided planning sheet. And part of this planning process, one of the math standards, was for students to represent a three-dimensional figure using net. So students will have to graph their proposed drawing and represent it using a net. This is where the planning phase comes in with their groups. Each student is going to have to create their own net, but they will be using the same types of materials, so they will be able to work together. Day 4 is when students will gather materials needed to create their solar oven and actually create it. Students will have a sheet to fill out as they are creating their oven to make sure that they are following both their plans from the day before and are working with each other to make sure that their oven is going to be successful. Day 5 is when we are going to test the designs outside. So we are going to time the amount of seconds or minutes it's going to take for both the chocolate and the marshmallow to melt or cook. Students will then make a graph to show the time it took for each group's ingredients to heat up. So each student will have 2 graphs, one for all of the group's chocolate and how long each of their chocolate pieces took to melt, and they will have a graph for the marshmallow and how long each of the marshmallow took to melt. We will draw conclusions using the template, and students will be able to see which materials were most productive and why some groups' materials melted quicker than others. And of course, students will be able to eat theirs some more. Some constraints for this. At the beginning of the unit, during day 1 and 2, we explore materials. In order for there to be enough time, we could use heat lamps instead of the sun, but towards the end of the week, you do want to use the sun to get a good representative of a solar oven. The amount of materials used should be limited to 3 feet of aluminum foil, 1 box, 4 pieces of construction paper, 3 feet of tape, and 2 feet of plastic. This should be plenty. The assessments that will be used are outlined here. Each day has a sheet that students will follow, in which will be taken as a formative assessment to make sure students are understanding the content. But at the end, on day 5, students will reflect, and that is what will be scored. So a formal score is not going to be taken until day 5, when students turn in their plan that includes their net of the solar oven and the different graphs that students have created to make sure that we're assessing those math standards. Differentiation should look like groups being strategically selected so students can support each other's learning. Students in younger grades could use a model of how to make a solar oven rather than making it on their own. If time is limited, a class solar oven can be made, so different materials can be explored, but as far as creating that solar oven, that could be as a class. The sun is an additional concept that could be explored through this activity, especially for younger grades. For English language learners, making sure to provide sentence frames and additional scaffolds that will allow students to understand the material being presented. Here you will see some examples of different solar ovens. The one on the left is one that I created. It really was not all that difficult to create. I think it would be a great way in 6th grade for students to get hands-on experience with thermal energy, and it's in a very real world way or application. And then there are some more examples on the right of ones that other people have made. And that is it. Hopefully, you have learned something about solar ovens and how students can learn about thermal energy.